Welcome to Success Symphony, the place where we unravel the stories of the world's most remarkable entrepreneurs, billionaires, athletes, and visionaries. Individuals who dared to dream beyond the ordinary and turn those dreams into legacies that echo through time. Today, we're stepping into the world of Steve Jobs, a name synonymous with innovation, creativity, and relentless ambition. He didn't just build Apple from a garage into a global empire or turn Pixar into a storytelling giant. He redefined how we interact with technology and each other. From the first clunky computers to the sleek iPhone in your pocket, Steve's journey is a wild ride of brilliance, setbacks, and jaw-dropping comebacks. What do you think it takes to leave a mark like that? Is it talent, grit, or just a little bit of madness? We're about to find out. So, settle in, hit that play button, and let's dive into the symphony of Steve Jobs, a story that's as inspiring as it is unforgettable. Oh, and while you're here, what's your big dream? Drop it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a beat of Success Symphony. Let's get started. Every legend starts somewhere, and for Steve Jobs, it was a modest house in San Francisco in 1955. Born to a young couple who gave him up for adoption, he was raised by Paul and Clara Jobs, hard-working folks who saw something special in their curious, restless son. As a kid, Steve was obsessed with electronics, often joining his dad in the garage to take apart radios and rebuild them just for fun. That garage wasn't just a mess of wires and tools, it was the launchpad for a revolution. But Steve wasn't your average tech whiz. At 18, he enrolled at Reed College, only to drop out after 6 months because he didn't see the value in it, or the cost to his parents. Instead, he stuck around, auditing classes like calligraphy that caught his eye. Years later, that random choice shaped Apple's iconic typography. Crazy, right? What would you risk to follow your gut? In 1976, at just 21, Steve teamed up with Steve Wozniak. Woz, the brilliant engineer, and Jobs, the dreamer with a knack for seeing the bigger picture. Together, they built the Apple I in that same garage, a bare-bones computer that barely hinted at what was to come. They soldered circuits, scrounged parts, and dreamed of a world where tech wasn't just for labs but for living rooms. It's the kind of hustle that makes you wonder, what's your garage moment? Steve once said, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." And in those early days, with nothing but a vision and a workbench, Steve was already proving it, one wire at a time. By the late 1970s, Apple wasn't just a side gig anymore, it was a spark ready to ignite. The Apple II hit the scene in 1977, and it was a revelation. Colorful, approachable, and designed for regular people, not just tech wizards. Steve's gift wasn't just in the circuits. He had an uncanny ability to see what people didn't even know they needed. Was built the machines, but Steve sold the dream. Fast forward to 1984, and the Macintosh took it to another level. The first mass-market computer with a graphical interface and a mouse. It wasn't just a tool. It was a statement. Sleek, intuitive, and unmistakably Apple. But perfection came at a cost. Steve was relentless, pushing his team to sleepless nights, obsessing over every detail, from the curve of a button to the shade of beige. Some saw him as a genius, others, a taskmaster. What do you think? Does brilliance justify being tough to work with? Tell us below. By his mid-20s, Steve was a millionaire, and by 30, a tech icon. Apple was soaring, until it wasn't. In 1985, after clashing with the board and CEO John Sculley, a guy Steve himself hired, he was ousted from the company he'd poured his soul into. Imagine that, building a dream from scratch, only to be locked out. It's the kind of twist that could have ended the story for most. But for Steve, it was just a detour. That exit wasn't a fall. It was a springboard. He'd later call it one of the best things that ever happened to him. Why? Because it forced him to rethink, to rebuild, to rediscover what he was truly capable of. The Apple revolution wasn't over. It was just hitting pause before the real show began. Steve Jobs, kicked out of Apple, could have faded away. Instead, he turned exile into evolution. He called these his wilderness years, a time of wandering that became a masterclass in reinvention. First up, Next, a company he founded in 1985 to build high-end computers for education and research. It wasn't a runaway hit, but it kept Steve sharp, experimenting with software that would later change everything. Then, in 1986, He made a move no one saw coming. He bought a struggling animation studio called Pixar from George Lucas for $5 million. With Steve's vision and a team of creative geniuses, Pixar didn't just survive, it soared. Toy Story in 1995 was a global sensation, followed by A Bug's Life, Finding Nemo, and more. Steve wasn't just a tech guy anymore. He was a storyteller, blending art and innovation into billion-dollar magic. What's your wilderness moment? That time you felt lost but found something new? Share it with us. While Apple floundered without him, stock plummeting, ideas stalling, Steve was quietly proving his worth elsewhere. Next and Pixar weren't just side projects. They were proof he could thrive outside the apple orchard. Those years taught him patience, perspective, and maybe a touch of humility. Qualities he'd soon bring back to the company that once rejected him. It's a reminder, sometimes the detours in life aren't setbacks, they're setups for something greater. And Steve's next chapter? It's about to blow the roof off. By 1997, Apple was a shadow of itself, bleeding cash, losing its edge. Enter Steve Jobs, stage left. Apple bought Next, and Steve returned, not as a founder, but as a savior. He didn't waste time. He axed failing projects, rallied the team, and launched the iMac in 1998. A bold, candy-colored machine that screamed, "Think different." It wasn't just a computer, it was a lifeline. Sales exploded, and Apple was reborn. But Steve was just warming up. In 2001, the iPod turned music into a personal, portable revolution. White earbuds became a cultural badge. Then, in 2007, the iPhone dropped. A phone, a computer, a portal to the future, all in your hand. Steve didn't just make products. He crafted experiences, blending tech with humanity. By the time he passed in 2011, Apple was the world's most valuable company, and his fingerprints were on every screen, every song, every swipe. What's your comeback story? That moment you turned a loss into a win? Steve's secret wasn't luck. It was focus, simplicity, and a refusal to settle. He once said, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life." From that garage to the global stage, he lived that truth, composing a symphony of innovation that still resonates. His legacy isn't just in the tech, it's in the courage to keep going, no matter what. So, what's your next move? That's the Symphony of Steve Jobs, a tale of vision, resilience, and a legacy that keeps inspiring us. Thanks for tuning into Success Symphony. If Steve's story lit a fire in you, or just made you rethink what's possible, drop a comment. What's one lesson you're taking from his journey? Hit that subscribe button to catch more stories of trailblazers every week, and share this video with someone who needs a dose of motivation. Let's keep the conversation alive, because your story matters too. Until next time, keep composing your own success symphony. See you soon.